Thunder rolls far away, soft and steady, like the heartbeat of the sky. Above the clouds, where air turns thin and time feels endless, a throne once gleamed. It was no ordinary seat. It was carved from marble that glowed like frozen lightning. It was crowned with gold that caught fire from the rising Sunday. This was the throne of Zeus. For centuries, it stood untouched at the heart of Olympus, a symbol of balance, of power, of order among the storms. Gods believed it eternal. Mortals did too. How could the throne of the King of Heaven ever fall? But eternity has cracks we seldom see. Legends whisper that marble remembers. Even stone can feel the weight of silence, of doubt, of time. One day, a faint fracture spread across the throne, not from battle, not from the clash of titans, but from something far more fragile. The burden of the heart. This story is not of victories or enemies destroyed. It is not about thunder striking down in fury. It is the story of how even the mightiest throne can break, and of what might rise from its ruins. There is a saying among the old poets, that every symbol is born not from what it is, but from what it must carry. The throne of Zeus was no exception. To call it a chair, even a grand one, is to miss its essence, for it was less a thing to sit upon, and more a vessel for meaning itself. Long before the age when mortals whispered the names of the Olympians, there was only sky and sea, only chaos given shape by time. Out of that vastness came order, and out of order came the throne. Some say it was forged from the bones of the earth. Others say it was woven from storms, gathered by the hands of the fates. And a few, the quietest voices, say that the throne was not built at all, but simply appeared the moment Zeus was born to rule. It shone with a brilliance unlike any stone mortals have ever known. Its marble was pale, yet alive, streaked with veins that pulsed faintly like frozen lightning caught beneath the surface. Each streak hummed with an energy that felt both ancient and eternal, as though it carried the weight of thunder itself. And upon its edges, gold wrapped like fire around stone gold that caught the light of the sun each morning and cast it out in 1,000 rays. But beauty was not its only gift. The throne carried presence. To stand before it was to feel as though the sky itself bent closer, as though time slowed, as though silence gained weight. Even the gods, radiant and proud, would lower their eyes in its shadow. It was not merely Zeus's throne. It was the heart of Olympus. Every decree, every promise, every oath spoken upon that seat rippled through the heavens. Mortals below might never see it, but they felt it. In the changing winds, in the turning of seasons, in the quiet pull of destiny. The throne was both anchor and beacon, holding the world steady while lighting the path forward. And yet, for all its grandeur, it was also a mirror. It reflected not only power, but the heart of the one who sat upon it. Zeus, mighty and wise, found that the throne carried his will into the world, but it also held the echoes of his doubts. If his command faltered, the marble seemed to darken. If his anger flared, the veins of lightning beneath its surface glowed brighter. The throne did not hide him, it revealed him. Perhaps that was the true genius of its design, for no ruler, not even the king of the gods, could sit upon it without being reminded of who they truly were. Mortals who told stories of it imagined a weapon, a fortress, a treasure, but the gods who saw it up close knew better. The throne was never meant to be defended or conquered. It was meant to endure, to remind, to hold balance when even the skies themselves seemed restless. And in its endurance, the throne became a promise. A promise that as long as it stood unbroken, Olympus would remain. Storms might rage, mortals might rise and fall, time itself might wear mountains into dust, but the throne would stand, and Zeus upon it, steady as the heavens. It is no wonder, then, that generations of poets sang of its perfection. No mortal craftsman could have made it. No titan's strength alone could have shaped it. It belonged to something larger, an idea, a truth, a mystery. But even the strongest symbols carry weight. And weight, if not shared, will one day press too hard. The marble did not crack in its first 1,000 years. The gold did not tarnish. The lightning within did not fade. Yet still, Beneath the gleaming surface, something silent grew. Something no god, no mortal, not even Zeus himself could name. For the throne was alive, in its own way, and like all things alive, it listened. It remembered, and it waited. This was the origin of the throne, not a tale of war, nor of conquest, but of a seat born to hold both power and heart. It stood as the symbol of all Olympus would become. But as with every beginning, the end was already hidden within it, quiet as a shadow, patient as stone. Power is never light. It is not a cloak to wear or a sword to carry. It sinks deeper, pressing like an unseen stone upon the heart. For Zeus, upon his throne, the weight was greater than the sky. When the gods first gathered on Olympus, the throne was more than a seat. It was a command, a center, a force that shaped wind, sea, and time. The moment Zeus claimed it, the world turned toward him with expectation. Every god, every mortal, every creature looked upward, waiting for his choice. Each word he spoke from that marble seat rippled through the heavens. Rain could bless fields or drown them. A whisper could dim the stars. At first, Zeus bore this mantle with unshaken pride. The storms obeyed him, the skies bent. The laws of fate leaned closer. He was king, and the throne magnified his certainty. But shadows come with power. For every decree, there was a hidden consequence. One city blessed meant another felt forgotten. One sailor's safe voyage meant another lost to waves. The throne was no weapon, no cruelty. It was truth itself. Every gift carried a cost. Every choice left an echo. And Zeus began to hear those echoes. At night, when Olympus grew silent, he felt the weight pressing deeper. The marble beneath him was smooth, but unyielding. The veins of lightning glowed faintly, reminding him storms were near. In that stillness, doubt began to hum against the stone. The gods around him saw only his thunderbolt, his crown, his radiance. Mortals looked to the sky and saw only lightning, law, and order. But the throne knew better. It remembered his hesitation. It remembered his pauses, his silences, his unseen questions. It held the echoes of choices that unsettled even Zeus. And so the weight grew. Not suddenly, not violently. It grew like snow upon a mountain, silent, patient, invisible. Zeus understood the burden, but kept it unspoken. Perhaps he feared that doubt would shatter the illusion of certainty. Perhaps he feared the gods and mortals would see him falter. What is a king if not certainty itself? Yet power is never only command. It is consequence, shadow, and echo. The throne reminded him of this with every word spoken upon it. It lifted him higher, yet tied him closer to the world below. Each thunderclap was his voice, and the weight of countless decisions. Each judgment carved into marble, remembered by lightning. And Zeus began to wonder, was the throne his to command, or was he bound to it? Did he rule Olympus, or did Olympus rule him? He never spoke these questions aloud, but in silence, the throne heard them. It listened. It remembered. And though no crack showed on its surface, fragility had already begun. Not in the stone, but in the heart of the one who sat upon it. The throne stood firm. The sky remained steady. But within the weight of power, a question had been born. And questions, once born, do not fade. They grow, patient as thunder before the storm. No throne, no matter how radiant, is beyond change. For ages, the marble stood flawless, its veins alive with frozen lightning. But silence has a way of seeping into stone. Doubt, though unseen, leaves its mark. One night as Zeus sat alone upon Olympus, the air grew strangely still. The stars above seemed to wait. The winds held their breath. And in that silence, the throne shifted. A faint sound, softer than a sigh, echoed beneath him. At first, he thought it was imagination. The marble had always been strong, eternal, unbroken. Yet when he touched the arm of the throne, he felt it. A line, thinner than a hair, traced across the surface. It was not wide, not deep, not dangerous, but it was there. A fracture. The first crack. It had not come from battle. No Titan strike had caused it. No storm had shattered it. It had come from within, from the weight it carried, from the echoes it remembered, from the quiet tremor of a heart uncertain. Zeus stared at it, silent. He could summon lightning with a word, move seas with a gesture. Yet here was something beyond command, a flaw in what had seemed flawless. The throne had reflected his strength. Now it revealed his doubt. And though no god or mortal could see the crack, Zeus knew it. The marble remembered. The lightning within hummed more faintly. The silence around him grew heavier. The throne was no longer whole. And once broken, even the smallest fracture cannot be undone. It waits. It deepens. It becomes. Cracks never stay secrets for long. On Olympus, even silence carried. A sigh could echo like thunder through valleys. In time, the gods began to sense what Zeus had seen. It began not with alarm, but with questions. Hera saw the way Zeus lingered on the throne. His hand rested on the marble as if listening. She kept silent, but the thought stayed with her. Athena noticed the flicker of light on the throne. For an instant, she saw a thin line etched in stone. She blinked, and it was gone. Still, her mind did not forget. Whispers rose in corners, gardens, and feasts. Not accusations, only gentle murmurs. Words shared carefully, like rustling olive leaves. "Did you notice?" one voice asked. "Yes," came the reply. "The throne seemed different, not weaker," said another, "but changed." These were not words meant to spread. Yet they did. From goddess to god, from god to muse, from muse to nymph, until Olympus hummed with curiosity. But the whispers were born of wonder, not fear. What if the throne of Zeus could change? Apollo spoke to the muses of its meaning. Perhaps the throne reflects soul, not stone. If it cracks, the world reveals its truth. Hermes jested with the winds. If even Zeus's throne can fracture, nothing escapes time. His laughter carried, but unease lingered beneath it. Poseidon frowned when whispers reached him. The throne is stronger than tides, stronger than storms. To doubt it is to doubt Olympus itself. Yet even his words stirred with quiet doubt. Hestia, keeper of the hearth, stayed silent. Her silence was care, not ignorance. She knew whispers could become flames if untended. And Zeus? He heard them all. A king cannot rise above the thoughts of his gods. He did not rage, nor silence them. Instead, he listened. And deep within, he wondered. For he knew the truth of the hidden line, the quiet shift of stone, the tremor of fragility. He carried that knowledge not as a wound, but as a question. What does it mean when eternity bends? The throne was once perfection. Now it had become more complicated. It was no longer just a symbol of power. It was a reminder that even the strongest can tremble, that even gods are not untouched by doubt. And so the whispers continued, not loud, not cruel, but constant, like leaves murmuring in restless wind. They became part of Olympus itself. Not rebellion, just curiosity. Perhaps this was the true beginning, not the crack, but the words it inspired. For words ripple and spread like waves. They take root in memory. And memory, like marble, never forgets. Whispers are small, but from them, stories are born. And even thrones may rise or fall. Silence is heavy. Not the silence of peace, but the silence that fills a room when words are missing. It presses against walls, drapes across shoulders, and settles into stone. Zeus carried Zeus' silence. The king of Olympus, the wielder of thunder, could command storms and split skies. Yet when he sat upon his throne, he felt the weight of what could not be spoken. The throne no longer sang with its usual brilliance. Its lightning glow had dimmed, as if uncertain. It hummed faintly, like a harp missing a string. No one spoke of it to him, not directly. The whispers passed around him like a river flowing around a stone. But he felt them. Every sideways glance, every pause in conversation carried the same question. Was the throne unbreakable? In council, the gods pretended nothing had changed. They spoke of seas, of crops, of the turning of stars, but their eyes often drifted toward the throne. Not long enough to offend, but long enough for Zeus to notice. He bore it quietly. He did not raise his voice to scatter their doubts. He did not unleash lightning to drown their whispers. Instead, he listened to them and to himself, for within his chest, another silence had grown. The silence of questions never answered. What did the crack mean? Why had it come? What did it say about him? About Olympus? About the order of all things? Zeus, who had faced titans and storms, found himself facing something smaller, yet heavier. The burden of uncertainty. Every god carried weight. Hera carried the weight of family. Athena bore wisdom. Poseidon held the sea. But Zeus carried Olympus itself. The throne was not just stone and gold, it was the center of their world. If it faltered, so too might the mountain. So too might the skies. And so Zeus sat, tall and steady, but inside he bent beneath the silence. Some nights, he left the throne and wandered the high paths of Olympus. The stars stretched wide above him, ancient and knowing. The winds curled around him, carrying no answers, only questions. He remembered when the throne was new, when its marble gleamed, and its lightning sang like a chorus of creation. Back then, he had felt no doubt. Back then, power had seemed endless. Now the memory felt distant, like light from a fading star. The crack itself was small, almost invisible, but the burden it carried was vast, because it was not only a line in stone, it was a line in certainty. The silence deepened, not because the gods refused to speak of it, but because Zeus himself could not. How does a king confess that his throne is changing? How does a god admit that even eternity trembles? So he carried it alone. Each day, the marble pressed against him. Each night, the questions returned. He did not sleep as easily as before. Dreams of thunder gave way to dreams of silence. Dreams where the throne hummed with unease, where the crack deepened like a shadow across the sky. Yet still, he endured. Still, he rose each day to sit upon the throne. Still, he carried Olympus. This was the silent burden, not the weight of storms, but the weight of being seen, the weight of being wondered about, the weight of perfection no longer perfect. And though the crack was hidden, the burden was not. It grew heavier with every whisper, every glance, every unspoken word. The gods continued to move, to laugh, to feast. The mortals below continued to pray and sing. But above it all, on the shining mountain, Zeus carried the silence alone. A burden no lightning could strike away. A silence no storm could scatter. A truth too fragile, too vast, to speak aloud. The strongest thrones do not always fall from force. Sometimes they falter under silence. And silence, carried too long, can shape destiny. On Olympus, whispers are soft. But in the mortal world, whispers grow into songs. Mortals always looked to the mountain as a beacon. They prayed for rain, for harvest, for love, for victory. They trusted Olympus as eternal, unshaken. Yet something unseen had begun to stir. The crack was not visible to mortal eyes, but its echo sent ripples down the mountain. Priests noticed silence in their temples. Oracles spoke, but their visions tangled in confusion. Sacrifices burned strangely, smoke curling in hesitation. Farmers said the rains arrived late. Sailors heard the winds hum strangely at sea. Mothers sang lullabies, yet felt the air grow heavy. New disasters struck, new storms raged. Yet mortals felt unease deep in their bones. Legend spoke of Zeus as eternal and unbending. But storytellers now hesitated at firesides. They faltered before declaring Olympus unshakable. Kings whispered to their advisors in shadowed halls, "If even Olympus trembles, what of our thrones?" Mortals do not need proof to believe. They need only a rumor. And rumors, like seeds, grow quickly. Some dreamed of lightning that cracked but never struck. Others saw faint lines across the sky at dusk. Merchants carried tales from village to village. The details shifted, but the heart remained. Olympus was no longer untouchable. Not all mortals feared this change. Some found hope in it. If gods could change, perhaps fate could too. A fisherman told his son by the shore, "The mountain shifts, but so does the sea. And still, we sail upon it." a poet dreamed of thunder fading into silence. He wrote verses of renewal and fragile hope. His words traveled far beyond his reach. They became prayers in their own right. The echo of the crack was not destruction. It was awakening. Mortals began to wonder if gods were closer. Not flawless, but burdened like them. Tested, uncertain. Reverence shifted into something more human. Prayers still rose, but their tone had changed. They were not only praises, but questions. Do you still hear us? Are you still strong? Can you still guide us? Zeus did not answer, but echoes lingered. Temples filled with quiet, searching voices. Markets buzzed with rumors of the unseen. Families listened at night for signs in the wind. The crack had become more than stone. It had become a story. And stories, once born, never stay silent. Gods might ignore whispers on Olympus, but mortals gave them life. They carried them in songs and fireside tales. The burden of the throne grew heavier, not only upon Zeus, but upon the world. The marble remembered, the heavens listened, and the earth echoed with questions. The throne was cracked, the silence spread, and now the world itself had begun to listen. On Olympus, whispers had grown too strong to ignore. Silence itself seemed to speak louder than words. Zeus sat upon the throne, his hand brushing the faint crack. Secrets, even for a king, cannot be carried forever. It was time to share the burden with the wise. Athena was the first summoned to the hall. She came with quiet eyes, not spear or shield. "Father," she said, "you would not call me without reason." Zeus nodded, his voice steady but trembling within. "The throne bears a crack," he confessed. Athena's gaze flickered. She too had seen it. She asked no questions, only listened. "It is not stone alone," Zeus said. "It is a sign." "Signs are messages," Athena replied. "But from whom?" Before he could answer, Hestia entered. She carried no weapon, only her flame of stillness. "The hearth listens, and so do I," she said. Zeus met her gaze with weary eyes. "The crack is revelation," Hestia spoke gently. "Thrones too may breathe and change," Athena added. "If the throne changes, so must we." Zeus turned next to Apollo, god of light, but even he carried shadows in his voice. The Pythia dreams of thrones that sing and fall silent. "I cannot tell which is fate and which is fear." "Do the visions speak of endings?" Zeus asked. "Not endings," Apollo said. "Transformations." The word itself felt heavy in the chamber. Finally, Themis entered, bearer of divine law. Her voice stilled the air like dawn before sunrise. "Cracks are not weakness," she said. "They are openings. They reveal what is hidden." Her gaze met Zeus with piercing truth. "And perhaps they reveal what you fear most." The words struck deep within his heart. Zeus knew power lived, not in marble, but in trust. The council was finished, yet no answers were found. Only questions heavier than the stone around them. Athena's wisdom, Hestia's calm, Apollo's riddles, Themis's truth. All pointed not to certainty, but to change. Zeus sat in silence once again, his hand upon the crack, his heart upon decision. Wisdom had not come as clarity. It had arrived as burden. Above Olympus, clouds gathered in stillness, not storm. The world seemed to hold its breath. The crack within the marble waited for choice, waited for courage, waited for what even gods could not yet see. The counsel had been given, but the question of the throne remained. And Zeus found himself not with answers, but with silence. Silence heavier than thunder. Silence that was perhaps the beginning of truth. On the edge of Olympus lies a quiet hall. It is older than the throne, older than the reign of Zeus. It is the place where fate is woven. Here, the three Moirai tend their endless work. Clotho spins the thread. Lachesis measures. Atropos marks the end. Their hands never rest, for all lives pass through their loom. When the throne cracked, the tremor reached them. The loom quivered. The threads shivered. The tapestry faltered. The sisters paused, which was rare, for fate seldom waits. Clotho touched the spool of new beginnings. Lachesis steadied her rod but glanced at old lines. Atropos leaned close, studying threads as though shifted. "What has changed?" Clotho whispered. The throne bears a scar, Lachesis answered. And the scar echoes, Atropos said softly. They did not speak of fear, but of balance. The throne was more than stone. It was keystone. If it faltered, all else might shift with it. Their threads told stories as they worked. A shepherd dreamed of stars. His thread glowed. A king longed for more. His thread darkened. Some threads wound tightly, others frayed at the edge. Now, new lines appeared, branching like rivers. Clotho traced them with wonder. Choices, she said. The crack has birthed choices. Lachesis measured carefully, and choice is the rarest of gifts. Atropos closed her eyes. Choice carries weight. Too heavy, threads may break. They leaned close to the tapestry of fate. They saw mortals dreaming bolder dreams. They saw gods pausing before old certainties. They saw whispers rising that would not rest. The crack had not ended the weave. It had expanded it. No longer one line, but a chorus of paths. Zeus felt the shift, though he could not name it. Mortals felt it too, and called it hope. The Moirai did not guide. They revealed. And what they revealed was transformation. Will the throne endure? Clotho asked. It will, Lachesis said, but not unchanged, for even what endures must bend. Atropos replied. The sisters returned to their weaving. They wove cracks into patterns, patterns into stories. Stories became eternity. Dawn spilled fully across Olympus. The air felt lighter, though no god spoke. No mortal heard. The loom itself had carried the message. The crack was not breaking. It was an opening. An opening for gods to listen. An opening for mortals to question. An opening for fate to stretch beyond the written. The Moirai wove not endings. They wove possibility, for possibility binds both heaven and earth. In the echo of the loom, silence promised change. The throne of Zeus remained cracked, but the weave of fate shimmered brighter than before. The story continued, not in finality, but in endless, unfolding threads. Far from Olympus, mortals felt the tremor. The earth had not broken, but something within hearts had stirred. The crack in the throne echoed across villages and cities. It was felt in whispers, in dreams, in the weight of silence. A farmer looked at his field and saw more than soil. A poet stared at the night sky and found new words. A sailor traced the horizon and dared to think of beyond. Mortals had always lived under the gaze of gods, but now the gaze seemed less certain. The silence of Zeus felt like an opening. Into that silence, voices began to rise. First, a murmur in a small town square. Then, a song sung by children near a river. Then, a cry shouted by a shepherd in the hills. "We are seen," said one. "We are heard," said another. "What if the crack is a door?" asked a third. The voices did not demand, nor did they accuse. They questioned, and questioning became a fire. Stories spread faster than wind through the mountains. Some said the gods would fall. Others said the gods would change. Most said nothing, but listened, as if waiting. The voices of mortals reached Olympus as echoes. The gods did not always care for mortal words. Yet now, they lingered, unable to turn away. Athena walked the marble halls deep in thought. Hermes listened with a half smile, half worry. Hera's gaze hardened, though her heart stirred. And Zeus, on his cracked throne, heard them too. Not as prayers, not as pleas, but as voices. They were not kneeling, they were standing. And in standing, they revealed their strength. Mortals did not wish to dethrone gods. They wished to be part of the song. The silence of Olympus and the voices of mortals met. One was heavy, one was rising. Together, they created a rhythm of change. A child's laugh in a village echoed in Zeus's hall. A mother's lullaby drifted to Apollo's ears. A blacksmith's hammer beat in time with Hephaestus's forge. The boundary between heaven and earth felt thin. Thin enough for voices to cross, thin enough for gods to listen. Mortals, once small, now sounded vast. They were the river that no stone could silence. They were the wind that no wall could stop. And their voices shaped the air of Olympus. The crack in the throne had given them courage. And courage, once found, is hard to forget. The gods could not unhear them. Zeus could not unfeel the weight of their words. The broken throne was no longer just his burden. It was a bridge between heaven and earth. And upon that bridge, mortals had begun to walk. Their voices carried more than longing. They carried hope. They carried defiance. They carried dreams that stretched beyond the stars. And dreams, once spoken, are impossible to silence. The voice of mortals had awakened, and Olympus was listening. High upon Olympus, the air shimmered with unease. The throne of Zeus stood cracked, yet unbroken. Its scar weighed upon gods as it did upon mortals. For the first time in ages, the immortals gathered. The marble hall of council opened its doors to every voice. Torches burned steady, though their flames flickered with doubt. Zeus sat at the head, hand on the fractured throne. His eyes carried the burden more than his words. Athena entered first, sharp gaze filled with thought. Apollo followed, radiant, yet restless in silence. Hera's presence was steady, her silence heavy. Hermes slipped in, quick, eyes bright with unease. Poseidon came last, sea mist clinging to his cloak. One by one, the Olympians filled the chamber. Silence ruled, heavier than thunder. Athena's voice broke it, clear as steel. "The throne is not what it was," she said. Mortals whisper, gods hesitate, balance falters. Apollo lowered his golden head. "They sing," he murmured. "Songs not of worship, but of becoming. They no longer beg, they create." Hera's voice cut sharp. "Do you not see the danger? If mortals rise too high, heavens may fall too low." Hermes leaned forward, eyes quick as fire. "Perhaps the crack is not an end," he said. "Perhaps it is an opening. Mortals speak because they listen. Should we not do the same?" Poseidon's deep voice rumbled like waves. "The seas shift with the moon. Why should Olympus not shift as well? What stands unmoved will crumble." The gods turned to Zeus. His silence pressed harder than stone. At last, he rose. "The throne is cracked," he said, voice steady, "but I remain upon it. The scar is not weakness, it is change, and change is no enemy to eternity." A murmur passed among the immortals. Athena bowed her head. Apollo smiled faintly. Even Hera's stern gaze softened with thought. Zeus's voice rolled again. "We ruled with distance. We demanded silence. But silence now speaks back. If we endure, we must hear mortals, not as worshippers, but as partners. They are not clay to be shaped. They are fire to be shared." His words lingered like thunder held in the sky. The gods did not cheer, nor kneel. They listened. And in that listening, something shifted. For the first time, counsel was not decree. It was understanding. The crack had not divided them. It joined them, not in fear, but in recognition. Even gods must bend, or risk breaking. The torches steadied. The air lightened. The council ended not with answers, but with questions shared. The gods departed, each bearing thought's weight. Zeus remained upon the fractured throne. He touched the crack with his hand. Cold marble pulsed with memory. He closed his eyes. The silence of Olympus no longer felt like isolation. It felt like the beginning of conversation. Far from the council hall of Olympus, another presence stirred. Prometheus, the firebringer, lay in silence and memory, though chained no longer. He remembered stone and sky. He had given mortals fire, the spark of progress. But tonight, alone in the mountains, he dreamed again. In his dream, the stars bent low, near enough to touch. Their light poured into rivers flowing through valleys. In those rivers, Prometheus saw glowing threads. Threads carried voices of mortals, steady and strong, no longer fear, no longer pleading, but courage. The crack in Zeus's throne echoed even here. Prometheus reached into the flowing river of light. It hummed, not hearthfire nor lightning, but joined voices. "I gave them flame," he whispered. "This is greater." The river parted, showing visions bright and clear. A farmer teaching his son beneath the moon. A girl writing words never spoken before. A craftsman forging tools shaped by invention. Not sparks, but constellations across the night. Mortal voices had become a chorus shaping fate. Prometheus looked up at the loom of Moirai, the threads no longer flat, but branching, dancing. Even fate itself seemed stirred by mortal hands. He laughed softly, not mockery, but awe. Perhaps the gods gave too little credit. The stars shimmered, and Athena stepped forth. "You see what others refuse," she said. Prometheus bowed. "I see only what mortals reveal." "They are not clay," he said. "They are flame." Athena's eyes softened. Flame must be tended. Too wild it burns. Too weak it fades. Prometheus nodded. "Do not quench or hoard it. Guide it, as one tends a hearth in winter." The dream shifted. Zeus sat upon his fractured throne, his hand pressed against the scar, his face unreadable thought heavier than anger. Prometheus stepped closer in the dream. "Brother," he whispered unheard, "do not fear. You feared flame once, yet it warmed the world. Fear not the voices, they too are light." The vision faded into dawn over the mountains. Prometheus awoke, the dream still alive within. The fire beside him burned low. He cupped its glow in his hands. Once, this fire had been rebellion. Now, it felt like promise. He looked to Olympus shimmering above the clouds. "May you listen," he whispered to the gods. "May you see as I have seen." The wind carried his words upward. Soft, steady, they climbed slopes and peaks. Even a dream once spoken travels farther than chains. And Prometheus knew it would not remain his alone. It would spread, as flame always spreads. It would touch both gods and mortals alike. The story of the broken throne gained another voice. And in that voice, hope burned brighter than fire. The first rays of dawn touched the peaks of Olympus. The fractured throne glimmered faintly, holding light within its scar. Zeus sat quietly, no longer above, but across. The council had ended, but its echo lingered. Words of gods and whispers of Prometheus moved like wind. It was no longer silence, but conversation. Below, dawn awakened fields, markets, and homes. Farmers rose, mothers told stories, artists shaped ideas. The fire of Prometheus had become imagination. Imagination reached Olympus without prayer or sacrifice. The gods felt it rising like a song, not worship, but resonance. Apollo listened to mortal songs with wonder. Athena saw thinkers questioning in her temples. Hermes smiled at travelers choosing their own paths. Hera felt strength as women lifted their voices. Poseidon calmed as sailors mapped new seas. Each god saw mortals as voices of their own. The crack in Zeus's throne became reflection, a mirror of what was always overlooked. Zeus touched the scar, glowing with dawn's light. He looked not down, but across, flame to flame. The gods' voices thundered, but also listened. They rise, not to overthrow, but to walk beside. Acknowledgement was greater than decree. Below, a boy paused at his plow. A girl whispered poems to the breeze. A builder tested a dream-shaped bridge. Small acts wove a song of choice. Prometheus smiled as he felt it rise. The Moirai leaned closer, threads shifting, alive. They did not cut, but allowed the weave to grow. The dawn unfolded as possibility, not destiny. The broken throne stood, scar gleaming. It would never be whole again. And that was its strength. Power shared is multiplied, not lost. The gods ruled, mortals lived. Between them stretched dialogue, not silence. Thunder and flame, dream and deed. In dialogue, eternity found a new shape, not carved in marble or bound in lightning, alive in the voices of gods and mortals. The broken throne was not an end. It was a beginning, the beginning of choice, the beginning of a shared future, a dawn belonging to all.